One of the things we want to do when we're thinking about creating an environment that is therapeutic for people with memory loss, we have to think in two parallel processes. One is, of course, we want the environment to be aesthetically appealing. We want that hospitality component to it. We want it to be attractive. We want it to be welcoming. We want it to be home-like. But we also want it to be therapeutic for somebody who has a disease of the brain that prevents them from seeing and interacting in an environment in the same way that those of us who are not struggling with the disease. So to create an environment that we say, well, families who come and tour are going to love this because it's beautiful, may or may not be therapeutic. So I think it's important that we start with some of the basics. We can't pretend that the disease of the brain is something that is separate over here and the environment is over here. So first of all, with aging, we know even without dementia, we see changes, right? So our eyes are not as acute. Colors become a little hazier to differentiate. Sound with hearing loss, it's harder to hear things in a room that echoes. And that's just with normal aging. And then we add on top of that a condition where the person may or may not be able to recognize cues in an environment that we take for granted. So I want us to think first and foremost about the layout of a building. When we talk about the design and the layout, we want things that are simple and easy to navigate. Why? Because the brain likes simplicity. Once we start adding complex things like you have to go down this hallway and then you turn here and you need to be able to make sure you get that swinging door to the left and you go, even again with normal functioning brain, that becomes difficult. The brain has to take in all of that information and process it. It takes more energy, it takes more brain power. So with somebody who's already struggling to make the connections, to make sense of something that they're experiencing, we want to make it simple. Each room in your facility should be designed with a purpose. That if I enter this room, I know what I'm supposed to do in here. If it has a kitchen, a refrigerator, long-term things that I can identify, it tells me this is where I eat. If I enter a room that has a sofa, a television, a bird sanctuary, I know this is a place for me to sit and observe. If I enter a room and the first thing I see is a toilet, it is a reminder for me that this is where I go to the bathroom. Cues, reminders, simplicity, and purpose are really, really important when we're creating a therapeutic environment. The second thing is to make certain that we pay attention to depth perception. And this happens with our color schemes. So with somebody who has dementia, they tend to lose that ability to differentiate objects from the environment. So if I'm coming to a place where I want to sit down, for example, and the color of the chair is very close in hue to the color of the flooring, I lose the depth perception. What I'm left feeling is, that looks a little frightening. I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do there. It almost looks like I'm going to be moving myself to the floor. There's going to be resistance. So you might be trying to get somebody to sit down, to eat a meal, to participate, and you might find that they become a little more combative or they're resistant to that. So it's important that in any way that we can, that we use our colors and our design to make the environment user-friendly. Colors that are bright are going to draw attention. So certainly you don't want a place where you want the person to be ignoring, to have a bright color that says, come on over here, this is a welcoming place. So what's one of the things we are often concerned about in a memory care unit? Elopement. So the last thing you want to do is draw attention to the doorways, right? You don't want somebody to be saying, oh, that's my way out. There's a window, I can see the parking lot, I recognize a door handle. In any way that your facility can hide or mask through colors, through layout, through furniture, the entrance and exit ways is really important and it's going to help you with not having to redirect residents away from that door or running the risk of somebody actually exiting when they see somebody coming in. That can be done very comfortably with colors. If a door blends with the wall, it becomes visually just one continuum. If a door handle becomes something that doesn't really look like a door handle, a knob, or something that they're very familiar with what you do with that, again, we've been able to hide or alleviate the attention to that exit. On the other hand, what do we want to draw attention to? We want to draw attention to the toileting area. Incontinence and the importance of being able to remind somebody to use the bathroom is really important. How we do that with colors is oftentimes with a very, very bright colored wall right behind the toilet. So if the entire room is in a comfortable, warm, welcoming shade of blue or a shade of green, you may want a very bright yellow or something that hits the eye in stark contrast on the back wall of that toilet. What it's going to do is draw the cognitive senses to that toileting area, to the toilet itself, as a cue or a reminder to make sure that somebody is using the bathroom. Signage is another important thing. You know, you go to a restaurant, and I don't know if you're anything like me, but if it's a restaurant that has, you know, the sign with the girl with the little skirt, I sometimes even have to check, like, okay, wait a minute, that's the women's restroom. Or something even more clever, you know, images of what they are telling you is the men's room or the women's room. I can tell you there's been times I found myself in the men's room because those signs are a little too obscure. And I think I still have a pretty decent functioning brain. Signs in a memory care unit that says bathroom, or a little girl with a skirt, or a man with a pair of legs that doesn't have the skirt is supposed to tell us this is the men's room or the women's room, is lost. We need something that is very specific, that's going to tap that long-term memory, and is a very strong cued image, like a toilet. A picture of a toilet says, this is where the toilet is. Now, for some facilities, they might say, yeah, but aesthetically, that's not very nice. Who wants to walk in and see a picture of a toilet? This is another example of where I say, if this is the person's home and this is their environment, it needs to be user-friendly. So it's important that we pay attention to the signage as well. The other thing is the flooring. Oftentimes what can happen with dementia is the eye gets drawn to things that we misperceive what they are. So many of you might say that you have loved ones or people that you provide care for where you find them picking at their skin, picking at their clothing, bending over and picking at the carpet because they believe that there are things there. So we want to make sure that we are being very selective in our carpet choices and our flooring material to not aggravate that condition. So certainly a carpet that has like little white flecks throughout it, what's that going to do? That's going to invite them to bend down to try to pick up what are those little white flecks on the carpet. Now you've got a fall risk, you've got perseverative behavior that you're going to have a hard time getting them to move off of. So we want to pay attention to that. We also don't want a image on a carpeting that is loud and busy. You know, some of the Holiday Inns, for example, strike me. You go in and they've got big floral and then it changes pattern and the floral goes over here. Remember, we want simplicity. We want it to be easy for the brain to process. Too much activity becomes a noisy environment that creates agitation in people with memory loss. We also want to pay attention to the glare of a floor and lighting. Any place that lighting can cause a puddling effect or shadows can look like a wet spot, a black hole. It becomes frightening, and you're going to see people in those units resisting that area. So non-glared flooring, lighting that is evenly distributed, that doesn't create those kinds of illusions to add to any misperceptions or hallucinations that might occur. The other thing that I think is really important and I really like in most state-of-the-art memory care facilities that I go to across the country are really moving towards this, and we know it to be important. Residents with Alzheimer's disease like to walk. They like to pace. There's a level of agitation. There's a purpose that they're looking for. Helping and allowing somebody to wander effectively with purpose is therapeutic. Certainly walking to the end of a hallway and finding yourself at the end of the hallway is not helpful or useful. It's frightening. You're there and you don't know what to do with that. So creating, to the extent that your facility can design to have indoor walking paths, I really, really support that. So differentiating with colors. that maybe the walking path is in the periphery, and you do that with a lighter shade of a hardwood floor, and you have carpeting in the center, or you have a darker hardwood flooring that says stay on the yellow brick road. Something that tells them I can keep walking and it goes in a circle. There's never a place where I get lost or I get frightened because there is a visual cue as to what I need to be doing. Finally, let me talk a little bit about the outdoors. I think it's really, really important in most facilities that you create therapeutic gardens, therapeutic environments. There's a lot of research that talks about, for all of us, the benefit of something called vitamin G, which is the idea that if we bring green space indoors, our oxygen saturation is better, our concentration is better, our mood is elevated. If we walk and we're outside, we notice that our energy, our serotonin levels, which is the happy, feel-good chemical in the brain, our endorphins are released. And that's just with people without disease. So to any extent that we can in our facilities, we want to bring green space indoors through plant material, natural lighting, window spaces. But it's also important that we allow space for wandering in a safe, secured, therapeutic garden area. And back to my primary principle that I started this talk with when I said to you, I want it to be simple so the brain doesn't have to work real hard to process what they're seeing. The same holds true in the gardens that you design. A wildflower garden, for example, might be great for any one of us, but think about a garden like that. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's all mixed in, as opposed to a very structured, clean-looking garden where you have similar colors all planted together with space in between, well-manicured, mounded things that the brain can go, okay, I see that, it's all clumped together in a simplistic fashion, is important. Things with good smells, water features that are being used in a way that says, enjoy the sound, but don't come too close, because as all of you know, water and the sound of water does what? Makes you want to go to the bathroom. So the last thing you want to do is put a beautiful water feature in and have somebody believe that that's where we get to urinate. So you want to make sure that the water feature is strategically placed that says, hear it, it's soothing, look at it, it's beautiful, but there's a barrier. And the barrier doesn't have to be some big high stone wall that prevents them from actually getting access or presents a potential fall risk. It can be plant material that simply says, stay on the yellow brick road, stay on that walking path that we're going to have that's a circular element with some plant material that just says, look, but you don't need to go closer. So I'm giving you kind of the highlight, the broad brush. I want you to be thinking about that when you're designing and building new facilities, or even retrofitting your current facilities to make sure that you're not just taking a unit, putting a lock on the door and saying we have a memory unit. Make it therapeutic. Thank you very much.